Welcome, everybody, to Fintech Perspectives. My name is Terry Angelos. I focus on fintech and crypto at Visa. And this is a series where we have the incredible privilege of working with some of the best entrepreneurs and companies in the fintech ecosystem. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by Michael Sindicich, who's the GM for TripActions Liquid, which is their spend and expense management platform. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So, Michael, tell us a little bit about TripActions. What do you guys do, and when was the company founded?
Sure. We were founded in 2015, about 5.5 years ago. We are a corporate travel platform for online booking. We have an online booking tool and native mobile app. We've got our own support infrastructure and TMC globally around the world. We're about 800 employees or so now, recently raised for a $5 billion valuation, which we're extremely excited about and have pretty great investors. And a lot of what I'm working on is our new spend and expense management platform called TripActions Liquid.
When you guys started TripActions, what is the problem you were trying to solve?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, a lot of us have been corporate travelers in the past. So we were road warriors, if you would say. And it was really interesting that, whenever we would go to book travel for work, it would be a very, very clunky experience, from booking online, trying to find your flights, your hotels. And then when you need support, it was typically really, really disjointed, right? You would call the support agent. They would ask you, what's your confirmation number? You'd go and filter through your emails and you'd try to find that. And we just found it very clunky. But when we would go to book personal travel, we found the experience delightful, really user-friendly. And the initial idea of starting TripActions was really to eliminate as much of the clunkiness of corporate travel as we could by providing new user interfaces, a mobile-first experience, and also building our entirely own support agent infrastructure and travel agency globally across the world to get people the right inventory at the right currency and the right prices. And so that's what TripActions was and started as.
Yeah, this is a theme we're seeing everywhere across enterprise software, which is finally the consumer tools that we're used to are starting to influence the design of B2B products.
Right.
Obviously, you guys are in the travel ecosystem. We're sitting here in late March, and coming to the end, hopefully, of this pandemic. Maybe you can just go back 12 months and walk through how has COVID impacted TripActions, and tell me a little bit about the year that you guys had.
Right. Yeah, it was no doubt a tough year, right? We were scaling extremely fast. Our customers were growing, they were traveling. We were continuing to scale globally and grow various product lines within TripActions. And then, virtually overnight, right, people stopped traveling. And that meant that our customers, our users, were not using the apps that we built for them. And so we definitely needed to take a step and evaluate, what do we want to do in that situation? And looking back, I'm extremely happy with our decisions, which were, one, to really, really focus on enterprise, right? So going and actually scaling up our enterprise sales team and going and selling to enterprise accounts that obviously knew that there would be a day after. And it was an amazing opportunity for TripActions to actually win more and more market share. So we had an extremely strong year. I believe we grew our book of business by over 60%. And a lot of that was driven by the growth that we had on the enterprise side and massive, massive improvements to the product around the product R&D and engineering side. So continued to scale the team there and build things like COVID dashboards where you can actually track where all of your employees are, right? So you can understand who's at risk, who's traveling where, how do I have visibility into that? We also did a lot of enhancements around unused tickets. A lot of our clients were canceling tickets, and instead of then needing to, when travel comes back, call the agency, try to track down the ticket, try to apply that manually, we actually built a way for globally to, anytime a traveler goes to book the next trip, we can use the automated unused ticket that's in the product. The other focus was actually the team that I'm leading, which is TripActions Liquid. I can describe what it is, but essentially a lot of investment went into building our travel product.
Yeah, that's just super interesting that, a year with all of these pressures actually landed up exposing and highlighting features that you'll end up building, into the roadmap. I would never have thought, unused tickets probably wasn't a use case you were that concerned about. So maybe I can just take you back. If I'm a corporate user, what is my interaction with TripActions? Am I booking my flights with you? What happens when I have my tickets? How does the app and the product walk me through that life cycle? Because travel, is a continuous end-to-end experience of updating and changing your itinerary as business travel changes.
So what you typically have is a online booking tool that might be one company, and then you might contract with what's called a TMC, or a travel management company. And then, you can take it even further. You might have a different corporate card, and then you might have a different expense management system. And then you might add on ancillary things to your travel program, like duty of care. You might add on a rewards mechanism to reward travelers when they save the company money. And so the way that TripActions actually acts from a travel perspective, we are the native mobile app when you need to make changes on the go. We're the online booking tool when you're booking on your desktop. And we're the corporate travel agency and support infrastructure and TMC. So we're managing the entire process. Everything is all the way TripActions. So for example, let's say, Terry, you were on a trip and you're on your mobile device and you're trying to change something and you want to chat in or you want to call in. You would call the agent. The agent would know exactly what you're doing, what you're looking for, what trip you're on, what screens you're on, what your favorite loyalty club is. We would know who your EA would be if you had one, and we would be interacting with them. So it's really that continuous end-to-end experience. And that's actually what got us into TripActions Liquid. I talked about in the beginning, we want to make the entire process less clunky. And when we look at corporate travel, there's a lot of clunkiness around, changing or canceling or booking or contacting support. But there's also a ton of clunkiness around payments. Travelers need to advance, in certain cases, their own personal funds, which has a lot of issues, with their credit, with their family life, right? It can cause problems there to actually advance money for the corporate. We see that employees need to spend time reconciling expenses, right? You have to take photos, you need to code it, you need to send it back to the manager. The manager oftentimes has not a lot of context. So, you might just press approve or you might not know what's going on. And then eventually it goes to the finance team who has to check it again. And then they need to import that into the ERP so that they have a view. And ultimately, they're not able to get insights into the entire business spend until after employees have submitted expenses, weeks or months down the line, right? And so by introducing TripActions Liquid, it's a virtual travel payment method in the travel platform. So when an employee books, we generate a new virtual card with every new booking. It automatically reconciles. Traveler doesn't need to do anything. Finance team doesn't need to do anything, and policy automatically applies. And then we also issue physical cards to employees so that they can use that while they're either traveling or at home or doing natural expenses as they normally would. And we're connected to all the systems, the HRIS, the SSO, the calendar, which provides all the context for every transaction. So you literally are no longer doing expense management. The entire process is automated. And during the swipe, during that authorization, we actually check all of that context with the policy that the company set up. And we can approve, flag for a manager, or decline that transaction depending on whether that fits within the policy. So we're really automating the entire process of payments for travel, but also expense management.
So Michael, one of the trends that we focus on at Visa is this notion of embedded fintech, sort of the idea that fintech really can become part of many, many other businesses. TripActions really is a software platform driving these decisions across a corporation driven by payments. I'd love you to just chat a bit about that concept and explain more about some of the payment stack on which you guys sit.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the way that we look at becoming an embedded fintech or leveraging fintech solutions is providing more value for our customers and our end users, whether that's a traveler, whether that's an admin or a finance team, getting better visibility. And so where we saw the opportunity actually is to build we at TripActions build beautiful user experiences on the application layer. And so we're leveraging a lot of the modern fintech infrastructure that's been developed in the recent few years to actually accelerate the process of being fintech enabled and helping our customers. So we actually partner with Stripe. They're our issuer, partnered with various banks. And then we leverage Visa on top of that as our network. And so by being able to partner with these fintech companies like Stripe or leveraging, for example, CreditSafe for underwriting, there's been a lot of advances in this space that actually allow us to get into the fintech space in order to deliver more and more value for our travelers and for our customers altogether.
Yeah, that's terrific. And, we certainly see almost every enterprise software company that is touching payments ultimately should have these payment functions embedded into their software. So, great to see you guys doing that with Liquid.
Yeah, I think we saw a trend a few years ago or a couple decades ago of every company needs to become a tech company. And now it's interesting. I've heard it said before, every tech company needs to become a fintech company. And, I stand by if there's more value to be delivered, then it's worth exploring those options of embedding fintech into your offering.
So looking ahead, how do you guys see travel and in particular business travel recovering as vaccinations increase and we hopefully see the tail end of COVID?
I can tell you what we're seeing now and sort of what our thoughts are on the future of travel. And right now we've seen a 57% growth in bookings over the last 6 weeks. And in fact, we're seeing 13% growth week over week. So we're actually very, very bullish on the return of travel. And one trend that we're seeing is this new notion of remote work is actually enabling a new category of users. I think in the past you had, sales teams traveling for meetings, you had marketing teams going to events. But what we're starting to see now, or what we think we'll see in a big way in the future, is actually this distributed workforce still needing to come together. Maybe it's once a quarter, once a year, but you're having people who haven't traditionally traveled for work, who haven't traditionally submitted expenses and used things like corporate cards for the company, now doing that on a regular basis. And so we're actually thinking that travel will be higher as a factor of the new normal or the new way to work for a lot of companies moving forward.
That's super interesting, actually. I think from a visa standpoint, we monitor travel very closely, and the idea that there's a third category of corporate travel that may emerge, even if maybe some other categories are softer, is exciting for us.
Right.
So speaking of travel, what is one of your favorite maybe travel disasters, either corporate or personal, that you've had to go through? We've all had them, and I'm curious what's one of your stories.
There was a time where and you'd think I'd be a better booker being in the travel space, but I once booked a vacation for my girlfriend and I in Tulum, and we got there, we got to the front desk, and we walked in, everything was normal. He said, the guy at the front checked us in and said, "Welcome to our hotel," and opened the door, and we realized that it was actually a clothing optional hotel. And we were pretty surprised, not expecting that, with our suitcases and looking at, quite a few nude people looking back at us. So it was an interesting experience, and one that I don't get to live down.
Well, that was probably out of the corporate policy. Had you been using TripActions, maybe you couldn't have made that booking. Well, Michael, why don't we switch gears a little bit to a set of lightning round questions. And my first one is, what do you think is most misunderstood about TripActions and the travel market?
Ooh, good question. I think it's the fact that before TripActions that you had to that you couldn't do a travel agency, you couldn't do an online booking tool from a tech perspective. You couldn't do a travel agency and you can do a payments platform all in one. And I think a lot of the modern fintech enablers, which I know you know a ton about, Terry, have enabled to do so. And so I think that what was misunderstood in the past, that you needed to have separate, disparate systems, are now actually ones that you can build all with TripActions. And it's capital intensive. It's very hard to do. You need to expand globally and all of these pieces. But as we've seen, it's definitely possible now.
Outside of TripActions, what is your most magical payment experience?
Can I say one within TripActions?
Sure.
So I was at TripActions for the last 5 years now, when we were less than 10 employees, and I was hired as the first salesperson. And so it's amazing now to see people know who TripActions is, which is awesome. Back in the day, nobody had ever heard of us. And I'm sort of doing a similar journey with TripActions Liquid. And the other day I was actually with Ariel, who you know well, at a cafe in downtown Palo Alto. And the person next to us was using their Liquid card. And that moment for me was extremely emotional. And it was just so cool to see. And this person was a CEO of one of our customers, and he showed us, yeah, I swiped the card and it knew what was on my calendar. It knew how much I paid. It knew who I am, who I'm with. It applied my policy. Look, I don't need to submit my expense report. And the person swiped the card and it was done. And that's exactly the value that we're trying to bring. So, every time I use my Liquid card, I smile. And now when I see other people using it out there in the wild, it's so gratifying to see that we're growing very quickly and have the privilege of seeing our customers in action.
Well, that's a terrific example, and I'm sure the coffee owner and Visa were just as excited. So thank you.
That's right.
Maybe just to kind of end things here a little bit. What advice would you give an entrepreneur focused on the fintech or the travel space?
Ooh. In the fintech space particularly, the biggest advice that I would give would be not to focus so much on the hype. I think in the fintech space, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of buzzwords, there's a lot of things that you can try and align yourself to and talk about on Clubhouse and some of the others that get people really excited. And those things are important because you need to leverage the new technology. But I think ultimately, right, especially in a B2B space, it's about delivering value for the customers. So something we think about all the time is, a CFO is not going to care if we have some specialized, fintech process of doing something. They care about end-to-end visibility. They care about automation. They care about making employees happy. And I think it's important not to be super focused on the buzz of the fintech industry, because it's extremely hot right now, and it's probably pretty easy to get distracted.
Well, great. Thank you very much for joining us today, Michael. We love what you guys are doing, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great to spend some time.